No, I don't think that we should label ourselves, which is so interesting because I do this work. What I always tell my clients, and what I told you before we started, I said, I'm not trying to tell you who you are.
Hannah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Erin. I'm super excited to chat with you.
Absolutely. My first and most important question is, how are you doing? Like, for real, for real, how are you doing?
Oh my gosh, thank you. For real, I've been dealing with a lot of back issues since October, and we're recording this in July, and I feel so bummed out that I'm continuing to deal with the back issues. It is getting better. It is getting better, but I would say physically, not feeling 100%. Mentally, emotionally, I feel great. This is one of the best seasons of my life, and I'm so happy with where I am in my life. So, we have a lot of duality right now going on in my life. It's a hard question to answer how I'm doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. How do you separate feeling really well emotionally, spiritually, but your body is sort of, not to say in shambles, but not as
Yeah.
good as it possibly could be? How do you separate those two?
Oh my gosh. It's so interesting, Erin, because I've never been here before. Like I'm 30 and I turned 30 and then, my back just kind of is not recouping. I'm like, is this what 30 is? Because I'm not okay with it. But I know that you're big on mindset. I am huge on mindset, and I choose to focus on what the good things are. And you know what? There's something going on. My body is trying to show me something, like, this is my perspective on it, and I just haven't been able to figure out all the pieces yet, and that's okay with me. I think obviously, we go through seasons where I'm like, "Fuck, this sucks," and then I'm like, "You know what? It is what it is right now," and I've we were before we hit record, you were asking kind of like where I was, and I've lived away from my family outside of New Hampshire for the past like 10 years or for 10 years or so. And now that I'm back, I feel home, like mind, body, soul. I just feel at home, and my family is my home. My people are my home. And I think there's just so many good things happening in my life that with my back stuff, I'm like, it's gonna heal. Our bodies eventually heal. Like, I'm going to figure it out eventually. So it's just a matter of time, and it's a matter of finding the correct people to work with and the correct puzzle pieces and focusing on how good life is otherwise and trying to stay there rather than like, oh my gosh, this is never gonna be fixed and this is never gonna resolve.
Mm. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I I have adopted the mindset. I read this book called Everything is Figure Outable. And
Okay.
I love that, just that phrasing. And I think, like, let's say, like, probably 99% of things are. Maybe there's a small 1% of, like, all right, this shit's fucked. We're all
Yeah.
fucked. It's fine. Well, we haven't gotten there yet as a species. Like, I think what we deal with day to day, everything is figure outable. And that has made my life, like, much, much better. And it seems like you also have adopted that same sort of mentality. But my question is, have you always been that way? Or is this something, a new development recently, or is this like how you were raised, or just like something naturally that's been in you, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah. I think that we're really a huge piece of our conditioning is our parents, and a lot of I talk about my mom on my podcast all the time, and I'm going to speak to her again. She raised us, one, to like my family, just to look, the glass is half full, right? Like, find the silver lining, find the good in things. And two, she would always say, especially like if you were sick or something, she'd be like, all right, we need to play a little bit detective right now and figure out what's going on. And that's really the mindset that I've adopted, that everything is figure outable, that we just need to take the time to listen and learn. Like, a lot of the language I use is learn the communication of our body, or learn the communication. I mean, that can be applied to everyone. Learn our partner's communication style, our best friend's communication style. And when we learn the communication, then we can figure it out. And that's definitely something that I was raised with. And I think, to answer your question, I think I've always had that perspective of, you can figure it out. You just need
Mm,
to find the tools, and sometimes timing is a thing as well. But you can figure it out.
yeah. I'm glad you talked about your mom because I talk about my parents on this show every episode because I say almost every episode. My mom says I don't do it enough, but I think I do it enough. That I'm the luckiest person in the world because of the parents that I was raised with. I mean, that's ultimately, no matter how much success I've achieved in my life, that's my competitive advantage, always and forever. Uh, like I used to be a professional wrestler, Hannah, like WWE.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
yeah, so if you have parents that 100% support that journey of their of their son going out in a crowd with basically sparkly underwear and a pretend name, and that's what they have to tell their friends at dinner parties that their son does, and they're in like, we fucking love it, it's sweet. What, like, if they're fired up about that, there's nothing that I could bring to them that they would be like of course they got upset or whatever, but like nothing that they would like stop loving me for. And knowing that is like the ultimate superpower that I have. And my wife is pregnant right now. We're about to have our first son in a couple months, and so like I just feel extra blessed that like I have that sort of knowledge role model to try and give to my son and try and live up to those standards that my parents set, which I don't feel like any sort of pressure about. I feel like an immense, what's the word? Maybe like it's like a gift. It's a gift.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool that you speak of your mom in such a high regard because like it's amazing. It's like amazing.
I feel the same way. I feel like I just am incredibly blessed in I learned so much from both of my parents. A lot of my business now is rooted in what I've learned from my mom. But I mean, both of my parents, my stepdad has been in my life since I was, I think, 8 or 9 or so. So my stepdad included, but we learn so much from our parents, and it can be the tough lessons too. It's not always like the rainbows and daisies, but we really do. And I feel incredibly blessed because I know that's not everyone's life story. And I love that we have that in common. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah, me too. So you mentioned that you just moved back home. Take me back to when you initially moved away from home. What drew you away from home, and what was that experience away from home like?
Ooh, Aaron, you said that you love the heat. I left the cold. I ran away. I grew up in New Hampshire, hated the weather. I, I try to use past tense. I didn't like snow. I didn't like the cold. And I knew that I wanted to also, on top of that, at the time I was dating someone, and his parents, my high school's boyfriend's parents, had lived in New Hampshire their entire lives. And I was like, I can't be one of those people that has only lived and experienced one culture, one state, and come to the end of my life and have that be my story. So I knew that I wanted to move out of New Hampshire, and I knew that I wanted to go somewhere warm. So and I knew that I wanted to go to school for speech language pathology, which is what I got my master's degree in. So my dad, I literally like was looking at a school in Savannah. I was looking at another school in Georgia, I believe. And then my dad sent me this article that said UNCG, the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, was like 36th at the time for their speech language pathology program. And I looked at the school. I found a bunch of things that I liked about it. I applied, I got in, and I was like, all right, let's go. And I went to the school without ever visiting it in person. So the first time I went down to UNCG was literally for orientation, which was wild. And it was the best experience of my life. I loved
Mm,
college. I think that I really thrived speaking of parents, my mom really raised my sister and I to be independent and to be self-sufficient and to cook our own food and know how to do laundry and know how to eat healthy and know all of these things. So I went down to school, and I mean, obviously it was very terrible to be away from my family. That was honestly the only bad part. My sister had a baby my freshman year of college. So being away from my niece, and this was my first niece, that was terrible. Otherwise, I loved it. And I loved my entire college experience. And I think that it was one of the best things that I could have done for myself.
Mm. We have a similar, in terms of college type entry experience. I played
Yeah.
baseball in college, so I wanted to get a scholarship, and it was looking really thin my senior year until
Mm.
this one school called in South Dakota. And on the
No.
phone call, the very first phone call, they asked me if I wanted to play baseball at their school. It was a Division I school. I said yes in the first 45 seconds of the phone call. And my first day in South Dakota visiting the school was my first day on campus. And then also my first day on campus, this is even funnier. One of the guys on my team who I had not met yet got a DUI the day before. So my first actual day on campus meeting my team was a punishment run. And that was my introduction to the
Oh,
team. And yeah, so that was wild. And like, that's when I met all the guys, and, you know, what the rest is sort of history. But I understand of like taking this sort of leap of faith and like jumping into
mm.
the deep end. And college also was the best experience of my life. All my groomsmen were dudes I played ball with. I learned a bunch of stuff about myself, made a bunch of mistakes, drank too much alcohol, you know, all
Oh,
those sorts of things. But like, maybe for young people now, it's not specifically college, because there's some pros and cons about sort of anything that you do. But I do think there's so much benefit in just leaving and
yeah.
doing something else where you're on your own, where you have to pick yourself up, where you have to clean up for yourself, where you have to just figure things out, whatever that might be. Maybe it's a camp, maybe it's going backpacking, maybe it's going to university. I mean, do you find that to be potentially true, maybe for young people?
Absolutely. I think college is tough, right? Because then you get a lot of student debt. Here's my perspective. If you want to do 2 years at a community college or whatever, you can do that. You can still move away and go to a community college, or you can go to the university. And what I think, besides getting a degree, which is also important, and we don't have to get into all of that politics, which I think it's beneficial just to have a degree to get a job. Like, I don't do speech pathology anymore, but I still have a master's degree. But besides all of that, you learn so much. And when you're on your own, like you said, when you're on your own, there's nobody to pick up after you. There's no one to tell you to go to bed. There's no one to tell you this is a bad decision. And we all make some bad decisions in college or in our 20s. And hopefully, I mean, your head's on straight enough that you're safe and you remain safe and, make decent decisions. But you learn, so you get so much life experience. And when you stay at home, and I understand the financial aspect of this, but when you stay at home, you're in the same routine. You're not pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And when we don't push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, we don't know what we're capable of. So there's so many aspects of college that I proved that I can do this, or I can expand this much. But when we stay in our comfort zone, we're not going to expand. There's just no way, because we're comfortable. So why would you change? So I think for that aspect, like you said, maybe it's not college, maybe it is a backpacking trip, maybe it's traveling abroad, maybe it's just moving to a different town and seeing how much you can immerse yourself in it, or a different state, and test yourself a little, like explore. I mean, how are you gonna learn? How are you gonna learn if you're not in new situations?
Yeah. Yeah, it's 100% accurate, you know, but I feel like maybe young people, since they have so much access to the whole world on social media, they feel like
Mm,
they can get what they need from that. But we know, I'll speak from a male's perspective about young men, right? There's this thing called
yeah.
the male sedation hypothesis, which is trying to
Okay.
sedate young men into not going out into the real world to find an actual human female, but they can have everything behind a screen. They can have an AI girlfriend, they can watch porn all day, and they don't need anything else. And that's how we sedate men, so they don't fucking ruin society like they've done before, because all they do is, you know, R word and pillage people and kill all that. That's a, you know, very uh extreme version of it. That's how some people feel, but that's the whole point of the sedation hypothesis. And now that could be sort of brushed out to a broader lens and say that's what they're trying to do with all young people. And so that we don't have to go out into the world and experience things and fall down and get back up. So we're not very resilient, and all those sorts of things. And it doesn't create a culture that is at its best, that it's flourishing. And I'm around young people a lot when I coach baseball. And just because I'm in the sports world, I see people getting after it. But I also see this sort of entitlement piece where if one thing doesn't go their way, they quit immediately because there's always another option. And so I see
Mhm.
both sides of the coin, and all these things are happening. And so if you don't go out and try things that don't work out, you're not going to know what you're capable of, like you're saying, and explore and find this wisdom. And then, young people also feel purposeless. But if you don't go and try new things, you're never going to know what that purpose might be. Like if I didn't
Yeah.
stumble upon podcasting because I was trying to promote it for my wrestling character, I would have never thought that this is like the most amazing thing that I could possibly do, having a conversation about just whatever the fuck we're talking about, because I'm trying new things. I'm throwing shit against the wall and like, oh, this sticks a little bit. This feels a little bit cool to me. Ooh, I'm drawn towards this. You're never going to know that if you don't, try anything, or if you stay behind a screen. And so I understand how complicated it can be for a young person to navigate the world, but they too have a choice to just go out and try stuff and meet new people and build relationships and experience the world and gain that wisdom, however it may be. Sorry for the sort of the rant there, but any thoughts on that?
No, because what happens is when we live our lives on a screen or in our bedroom, you you can't argue that you feel so alone. We're literally created and wired to live in community. And if you're going back, to tribal times, we were living in tribe, in community. And, we're created to, even like co-regulation, like our energy, we're created to be with other people. And so, yeah, you can go online and have whatever you want from AI and you can live vicariously through people. But one, we know the pictures don't take any justice. So if you're, looking at a reel from Greece, go to fucking Greece and see how much more beautiful it is than on the reel. But you're not, you're not, I think everyone that like lives in their little bubble. That's why we have really high rates of depression and anxiety. And it's kind of this perpetual thing right now because we're all kind of living with, well, whatever, with the pandemic and all of that, right? We were all kind of isolated, and then we come out and we're like, oh my God, like I don't even know what to do. Like it's too loud. There's too many people around me. And we had to adjust. And I think we're still readjusting, but it's doing the thing. And it's continually putting yourself out there, even with dating, right? Like so many, I've heard that kind of more in lines with dating where men are just not dating anymore or something because they can just do whatever they want online.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's not a real person. And eventually I think we're all going to realize like, oh, maybe I do need an actual an actual human. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never really like been huge into online stuff. Obviously I do a lot on Instagram, but like I've always wanted to be in person with people and just
Mm-hmm.
feel their energy. You can't feel someone's energy through a computer screen.
Absolutely not. Yeah, the craziest stat that I've seen so far about men and dating is young men in the United States aged 18 to 24, 50% of them, 50% have never asked a woman out in person.
Oh my
By the
God.
time I was 20, I'd asked 712 women out in person. Okay. Like one of them said yes, but I still was like asking them out. Like it's the only way. And
Yeah.
like I only learned that through sport, through playing baseball. I got out a bunch of times in baseball. Okay, well, I'm going to
Mhm.
try the same. I didn't die from getting out. Nothing happened. Yeah, I might be embarrassed, but like the ability to handle rejection as a young person, especially as a young man, is so powerful. It's not an attack on you. If I ask a girl out and she's like, "Oh, no, thanks. I'm not interested." Okay, cool. Have a nice
Yeah.
night. Like just learning that process right there is so
Yeah.
powerful. Then you go back over to your buddy. Maybe you order another drink. You guys start hanging out. Another girl walks in that you might find attractive, and maybe she says the same thing, or maybe you strike up a 20-minute conversation. She's like, "Okay, have a nice night. I'm gonna go now." You're just learning. It's just all reps. It's all just things that you're putting in your toolkit. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I got my shit together as a young man, hygiene, went to the gym, is so I could have sex with girls, right? That's a very like crass thing to say, but then it starts to build on each other. Then I'm like, oh, I feel better. Oh, I like the way I move and the way I think and what it's done for myself. Now it's not just about this, this thing that I could get. It's much deeper than that, sort of like a version of success. Like originally to get myself off my ass, I need to make some money. Okay, now I have some money, but what am I doing it for now? I'm doing it for a larger purpose. This thing makes me happy. It's fulfilling. I get to meet people like Hannah. Like, okay, there's always going to be a sense of activation energy, and we don't have to demonize that, but there's got to be some sort of turnover at some point where it turns into, I'm doing this because I love doing this, not because I always get this reward, because you're not going to always get that reward, whatever it might be.
Mhm. And
So yeah.
you find what you love, like you're gonna with dating, you have to go out on dates or have conversations with other women. I mean, whether you're getting that yes or no, first of all, we're always gonna get a no, no matter I mean, you can't be the perfect person. You're going to get a no. You're not gonna be everyone's cup of tea ever. And as we go on these dates, you're learning. As we try new jobs, you're learning and you're getting experience, and you don't know what you want. You might think that you know what you want, but you really don't know what you want until you experience it. And that goes for a job, it goes for a passion, it goes for a vocation, it goes for a relationship, it goes for your purpose. Like we don't really know until we experience it. So you got to fuck around and find out, like just try it and don't get caught up. I think that's the thing. Maybe young kids these that sounds old, but young kids these days, younger kids these days, I think you're right. Maybe they're getting caught up in the no and the rejection, and it's not really it doesn't have to be that perspective. It's not really rejection. If somebody says no to you, then they weren't your person anyway. Like
Yeah.
there's this quote, what's meant for you will never miss you.
Mm.
And I love that quote because we can get so caught up in, I wanted it to go this way. Like I wanted this person to say yes, or this was my person. And then they break up with you. What's meant for you will never miss you. That maybe was meant for you for a short period of time or a season in your life, but your forever person won't miss you.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yeah. All right, let's circle back to to you for a second. Anyways, okay, so you went to school, but then you became a coach. Where did that come from? How did that develop? Because now you're not doing the thing that you went to school for. You're coaching. You're coaching mostly women.
Mhm.
How did that sort of come to fruition?
Yeah. So I graduated college with my master's, 6 years in school, got my first dream full time job. And like a month in, I was like, there is no way that this is the rest of my life. And it's not that
Mm,
I don't love speech pathology. It's not that I didn't love where I worked. It's not that I didn't love my patients. I have always been someone that has just worked 3 or 4 jobs while in school full time. I've always been someone that just spins a lot of plates and I enjoy it that. And so when I got my first 9 to 5, I was like, there's no way. There's no way that I'm just going to go into a hospital every day, see some patients, go home, you know, veg out, pack my lunch for the next day and rinse and repeat. And so when I pretty quickly, I think it was the year that I started doing speech pathology, I decided to join a network marketing company, a skincare company. And it was mostly that I wanted something that I could build and that I could work on my own time. There was no ceiling, right? Like I can have as many clients as I want. I can make as much money as I want. I can work as much as I want or as little as I want. And it was through that direct sales company that I kind of built that business. And my parents are entrepreneurs, so I think there's a little bit of that in my blood as well. Like both my mom and my dad have their own businesses, and actually my stepdad too. So I think I was just always around that and very confident that I could do it. And so I built my skincare business, and then when I moved from North Carolina to New Jersey, I was like, I'm not doing full-time speech anymore. So I got a part-time speech job, did my skincare company. But of course, I mean, I love skincare, don't have anything against it, but I needed something that was very fulfilling. And I also recognized more and more, like I had all of these tools that my mom gifted me through childhood and raising my sister and I that other people didn't have. And so I
Mm.
had all of this knowledge and all of these tools. And I truly believed, like I truly felt that it was my purpose to share those tools and to help other people. And if I could introduce one person to a different mindset, to a different perspective, then that's what I wanted to do. So my business really started actually as a YouTube channel. Fun fact. You could go back and scroll down into the archives. It's quite a joy to watch the beginning of my videos. I'm so awkward and I was like so nervous, and I love it. Actually, I love watching like where we come from. So I started a YouTube channel and it kind of slowly grew from there. And now it's morphed into this one-on-one and group coaching container of the three pillars really that have made the biggest difference in my life, and learning them has given me so much permission to be myself and live authentically and in alignment with who I am, who I was created to be. And that's kind of been the journey in a nutshell. It's been very fun.
Sweet. All right, let's jump deep into human design then, because when I
Okay.
saw initially when we connected and that was on your page, I didn't have any idea what that meant. And then I
Sure.
listened to you on a couple podcasts, and then I got a pretty good idea. But I'd like to hear from you, like what it actually means. How does it help people? How do we apply it to our lives? We'll go from there.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you what it means to me and then a little bit more of the formal definition. But to me, human design is a permission slip. It's this tool that we can use to learn ourselves, just like the Enneagram, astrology, Myers-Briggs, any kind of personality test. The difference to me versus like an Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, those are all subjective because you're answering the questions of how you perceive yourself. And human design and astrology as well are more based off of the alignment of the universe, the stars, all these things. And it gives you kind of this blueprint versus this subjective opinion of yourself. So human design pulls from, it's a self-discovery system, and it's pulling from astrology, the chakra system, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, quantum physics, and it's kind of melded into this amalgamation of information that you have all of these different pieces or topics or chapters of your energy. So in human design, I never really go further than what I call like the big three in human design. There's a lot to human design, just like there is in astrology, but your big three is your energy type, your profile, and your authority. And your energy type is like your energy, how your energy was created to move through this world. Your profile is like your personality. So it kind of has information and insight on your personality. And then your authority is your decision-making process. So how you were created to make decisions. And what is most important to me in human design and what has made the biggest difference is it's given me this permission slip to see myself and how I'm different from other people. Like I pulled, of course, now I know like my mom's human design and my sisters and my partners and all of these pieces. And it shows the differences and how my energy differs from other people's. And it's this huge, like, I think a huge way to see yourself. And it's very validating. It's like this mirror that you can look at and be like, oh my gosh, this feels like me. And we can really look at like, oh, this was me when I was a kid. And then somebody told me that this was wrong. And I don't know. So I'll give you an example because I feel like examples are the easiest. What I was just saying, I've always been someone that has a lot of different jobs, and I've loved it. Like through college, I worked full-time student. I worked at a restaurant. I worked at a church, and I babysat and dog sat like throughout my whole life. And when I graduated, I was like, I can't do this 9 to 5. Like, I don't understand. I'm so bored. I just can't do it. Um, and I'm in human design, I'm called a manifesting generator. And manifesting generators, one of the pieces of them is that they really like to spin a lot of plates, and they
Mm,
typically are interested in like a lot of little things, and then we get disinterested in things, and then maybe we come back to them later. And manifesting generators tend to have like energy kind of, people also say we're a little ADD. I don't say I'm ADD, but that's a way that we are described. Um, and when I learned, oh, I'm actually created to like be interested in multiple different things at once, or my energy does really well when I'm doing different things. Like I have a podcast, I have one-on-one clients, I have group clients, I have in-person events. That's what I love. And to some people, that is completely overwhelming and way too much. But to me, I love it. And when I learned, oh, I'm a manifesting generator, that was that was the key that like clicked, and that was the permission slip for me.
mm. So, are you someone who thinks that labels are potentially a good thing, or what's your thought process there with labels? Because I have some
That
opinions on them, but I'll let you go first.
ooh, I want to hear your opinions. That's such a good question. No, I don't think that we should label ourselves, which is so interesting because I do this work. What I always tell my clients, and what I told you before we started, I said, I'm not trying to tell you who you are. I'm not trying to, what I say should feel very aligned and should feel like it settles really well in your soul and your energy. It shouldn't be this box. And same with astrology. I think like I'm a Leo, and we have all of these stereotypes about Leos, and I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm just a Leo, I'm super stubborn, or I'm just a Leo, I'm super bold, like whatever it is, and we use it as an excuse.
Mm,
I think that we also have this opportunity with these tools that can feel a little boxy or labely. It's this opportunity to challenge yourself and be like, oh, okay, so this might be like true about me. Can I be flexible on it? Or does this feel aligned? Especially like with the Leo thing. Like when I learn Leos can be very stubborn, I say that jokingly. I'm like, oh, I can be stubborn. But I always challenge myself and I ask myself, am I just digging my feet in because I want my way in this situation? Because maybe that's my natural kind of flow, or do I really want this? And to kind of check in on that. And if I am being stubborn, okay, can I be more flexible in this situation? And can I acknowledge I want to have my way right now? And that pisses me off, but I'm going to be flexible and, whatever the situation is. And I can allow myself not to have my way
mm.
to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about labels in a very similar way that you do. I think it all comes down to sort of the person who receives the labels, their perception of it. Because I think a lot about it in regards to our mental health.
Mm,
Because someone who can say that I'm experiencing depression or I have depression or I am depression, those are totally different viewpoints about how you think you're experiencing the thing that's happening to you. Because, of course, we're all going to get depressed at certain times in our life. Now, it
yeah.
depends on if that depression is extended on a long period of time. It also depends on if it's like precipitated by a certain event or it's just sort of random and this is like happening to you. Like you're still experiencing that thing, but if you are depression, if that's the only thing you identify as, you're obviously constricting yourself in your ability to recover from that. And so I also think about label and our identity because as an athlete, my identity was wrapped up in sport for a very long time and as a professional wrestler and whatever the case may be. And then, as I get better at some of this stuff and having all these types of conversation, you can expand your identity out to more of like character traits and values and things of that nature. And I think the same thing about a label. But I also, in the same token, I had a conversation with a man called Lee Povey a couple weeks ago. And he, for like all his adult life, he's maybe in his 50s now, thought he was just stupid. He thought he was dumb because he couldn't like read certain numbers and letters and he got jumbled up. And he was afraid to go to the doctor because they would just say, yeah, you're just an idiot. But obviously he had dyslexia and autism. So that
Yeah.
label for him was super freeing. He wasn't dumb, obviously not, right? He had a thing that now he
Wow.
knows what it is, and now he's it's just a part of him now. So that label was super freeing because he realized I'm not just a fucking idiot. I'm not an idiot at all. I have actually this thing that I've overcome my whole life, and I've been doing a really good job overcoming it. And now I know exactly what it is. So I think it all just basically all of life depends on how we perceive it. If I take this label, say bipolar disorder, like if I take this label, oh, now I understand some of the reasons why I do certain things in certain situations. And like you said, not an excuse for sort of poor behavior, but a reason now I can take control over that and maybe have a better response to it in the future because I know why it might be happening. I think that's sort of the best approach. But when we take that label and we make it our whole identity, then it gets a little iffy. And it could be a healthy identity too. Baseball player was a healthy identity, but I had nothing outside of that. So when it ends for everybody, no matter what sport you play or what thing you do. Then everything comes crashing down, and then you feel lonely. You don't know what to do. Then you actually get depressed, and things start to happen in that nature. So yeah, you and I sort of feel the same way about that.
Yeah. It's not living in the label. Like it's not making that your entire identity. Like, okay, another example is ADD, ADHD. And I honestly, I have so many thoughts about this because for so many reasons, but a lot of people that I meet are like, oh, I'm just ADD. Like, I just can't focus. I can't have this conversation, or I can't have a long pointed conversation. And this is harsh, but then I'll explain it. It sounds like an excuse, and that's coming from someone. I don't have ADD, I don't have ADHD. But why it sounds like an excuse is because my next question is like, what are you doing about it? And there's so much research on food plays a role, sleep plays a role, even like meditation. Like, how are you slowing down your brain? Because we live in a really fast-paced society. So I don't need to get on a whole soapbox about it, but that's just an example. And I love that you shared that example from your previous podcast guest, Lee, because we can use them. It's just information. I think that's really what it comes down to. And human design is just information, and how you want to alchemize that information in your own life. It can be very supportive, but I mean, don't get lost in your human design either. Don't let that define your entire life either. You shouldn't let anything define your whole existence, and using it as information and not, I guess, not as like the Bible, right? Like not as the final word. Just, I always say, listen, like when I work with my clients, I say, listen to what I'm saying about your human design chart and notice your bodily reactions to it. So notice if you feel that like kind of clenching and there's a little bit of like resistance. And if we're working long-term together, then can we dive into that resistance? Because is it a conditioning thing, or does it feel like very misaligned? And when we have conversations about human design in this example, that's where we can learn even more about ourselves. I can't tell you all about you. I don't know you, but I can tell you your human design chart, and then you can, or we can have this conversation about these different aspects of your energy or your body graph chart, and discover these new pieces or these new perspectives or these new thoughts about how you interpret the world and how you move through the world.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think of, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, Hannah, your favorite word is alignment. That's what it makes me think about.
Probably. I mean, I have a whole program called Align. So, yes.
Why is that your favorite word? What does it mean towards, after you maybe discover what your human design is, how then do we get maybe aligned, or how does someone get in alignment with that, or whatever you might think?
Alignment to me, I guess other words would be like authentic or true to yourself. I think that we spend so much time, and we're raised listening to everyone else. So teachers, right? And for good reason. We need to learn in school, and we need to listen to our parents, and we need to be parented. and we listen to our friends. And then when we get older, we listen to the doctor and our bosses. And we spend so much time listening to other people when we have a problem. And I do this too. It's really so much easier to turn to your friend or your parent and be like, listen to what just happened and like tell me what to do. And I think that part of it is that we're conditioned to not turn inward. And I think the other part is that it is easier to not have to turn inward and to slow down and get quiet. And so alignment to me is getting quiet and living in your own body and listening to your inner voice, whatever that is. That's what aligning means to me. And I think that there's so much freedom in that because nobody knows you like you know yourself. And you can learn yourself even better. And we can use other people to help us learn ourselves. And we do need to use other people to help learn ourselves. Therapy is a great example, right? Like therapists are mirrors, and they're really great mirrors. And we can work with so many different kinds of professionals, and we learn ourselves within relationships, whether they're romantic or friendships. But living in alignment is always coming back and like turning inward and feeling your own energy. I think that's what it is to me.
Mm. What would you recommend to someone maybe who's been really distant from themselves for a really long time? And this idea of listening to their body or communicating with themselves or getting in alignment seems so foreign and so, let's say, fucking crazy that they don't even know where to start. I know it's a general question because it's on an individual basis with each person that you might work with, but any thoughts there?
Yeah. This is my first thought, so we're just gonna go with it. First thought, best thought. We have so many people, well, women, maybe men, I don't know, I can only speak for women, have a lot of people pleasing tendencies. And like a huge part of my story is I have a big like fawn response, which is the kind of along the people pleaser. Like, I just want to make everyone happy and I don't want to create waves, or I don't want to disrupt, the common, whatever, the status quo. And so a huge thing is somebody asks you like, hey, Erin, where do you want to go for dinner tonight? Do you want to go to Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A is the best place to go to dinner? Do you want to go to Chick-fil-A? And you're like, oh yeah, sure. Why not? Before you respond yes, or you say yes to something, whether it's something simple like going to dinner, whether it's something a little bit deeper, just pause and just see how you actually feel. And you could be mixed about it. You probably will be mixed about it because, again, we all have like these like fawn responses, I think. I think that would be one way that you can really start tuning into your body, because your body is always talking to you. And sometimes it talks in really loud ways, like when we get sick or we get a diagnosis of some sort of disease, or you fall down and break your ankle, you feel pain. Your body is talking to you through that pain because it can't say ouch or that hurts. So your body's going to speak to you in sensations, and you will oftentimes get sensations when you're having conversations with people too. It could, another idea, if somebody's not asking you a question, like we also like pick up vibes from people, right? So like if you're having a conversation with someone, just even if it's like one time a day, you're having a conversation with someone and just like listening to what they say, tune out for a minute and just see like, how do I feel in my body right now? Like, is there any sensation that's coming up that I feel a little bit more than others? Like my heart, I can feel like my heart is beating a little harder. Like I can notice my heart more right now. Because I'm on a podcast and I'm actually being asked the questions. It's so much easier to be the podcast host than the guest, in my opinion.
You think so?
Yes, absolutely. So I feel my heart beating a little bit more. That's a way that you're connecting to your body. There's so many ways, but those are a couple very simple ideas. Even if it's just once a day, seeing what you can feel in your body. That's
Yeah.
a first step, not the first step, a first step.
Yeah. It just seems like with practice over time, you probably get a little bit better at recognizing that stuff. It's so funny. We go and watch a movie, right? And we're like fucking Rotten Tomatoes. We'll critique that movie to all end. We'll notice every little detail about it. But we refuse to do that sort of in our own life. Like after I have dinner with a friend or after I do something or my job, like we don't review it at all. We don't even think about it much. Like we just kind of continue going on this sort of whatever we're on. But if we go and I watched the new Superman movie and I reviewed that motherfucker. I had notes and shit. And I was like, I'm sort of obsessed with superhero movies. So I've dragged my wife to every single one of them. So that is what it is. But like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't we do that with some of the more important aspects of our life? Like how we feel day to day. Does this relationship, benefit me? Is this job something that I see myself doing for 30 years? Like, is this how I want to
Mm.
support? Like all of those sorts of questions we won't ask, but we'll ask like really hard hitting questions about a movie that has no impact on our life whatsoever, or the TV show we just watched, or, whatever the case may be. I just find that, very interesting. I see that in my own life. Like personally, that's the only way I recognize it. But yeah.
But you did a great thing. Like your first question is, how are you really doing? Like how are you really, really doing? Ask yourself that every morning, every afternoon, whenever you want, whenever you think about it. How am I really, really doing? Like, and that pause, that's what we're doing. We're just pausing. And I come from a little bit more like one step in another, I don't know, one step deeper in another direction. I don't know how to word that, but is feeling like how are you feeling in your body? What's really happening in your body? Like, do you feel a tension somewhere? Do you feel a bubbling somewhere? Do you feel heat or coolness? Like you can kind of do that, what's called a body scan, and you can do like, how is my body really, really feeling? Or emotionally, how am I really, really doing? Like how am I feeling? And not analyzing it, like not over analyzing it. Like I just feel this like tension in my lower back. Well, that's a big surprise. But just being like, okay, that's what I feel like. Like I just feel
Yeah.
this tension in my lower back. Or I just feel, I don't know, you wake up one morning like I just feel kind of sad today. Instead of getting stuck in the story of why do I feel so sad or what's going on, can I just allow myself to be like, oh, okay, I just kind of feel sad right now. And those are all just ways like we don't have to be over analytical, but it is creating this pause. And we don't really pause. Like even after dinner, right? Like you have dinner with a friend, drive home in silence and like think about your dinner. Like how did it go? Like that's a pause too. Like how is I feeling? How do I feel after I hang out with that person? I mean, there's so many ways, but we don't pause a lot. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, that check-in is super important. And the
Mhm.
honesty about that check-in can be really powerful as well. Um, one more thing I'd like to talk to you about, something I don't really necessarily think about too much, is the cycle. So, uh,
Probably not.
uh, yeah. So let's start with what men maybe misunderstanding about a woman's cycle that may impact her day to day, impact her work, impact how she shows up. This is maybe for dudes who don't live with a woman, who don't see it all the time. Maybe some important information that they should probably understand.
Yeah. I mean, even if you don't live with a woman, you have a woman in your life. You have women in your life, whether it's your girlfriend, your mom, your sister, your coworker. Um, so here's the thing. Men, and this is scientific, but I don't really get into all of the science behind it, but the basic level science behind it is that men run on this 24-hour clock. So you have the same like energy spikes throughout the day. You have like your men are pretty consistent, energy wise. Like they might not be consistent humans, but energy wise and hormones, you have very consistent hormones in 24 hours. So your clock is 24 hours every day. Women's clocks are roughly 27, 28 days, which you would think of as like their menstrual cycle. You can also use that, like if it's easier to think of it, I don't know, for men, but in like a calendar month, right? So like roughly 27, 28 days. Obviously, we have a few more days in the calendar sometimes. That's a woman's hormonal cycle. So what you go through in 24 hours, a woman goes through in 1 month, roughly. So to keep that in mind, women are going to have different periods of their month where they feel like they have higher energy. They're going to have different periods in their mind when they feel very tired and overwhelmed. And that might come out as a little more crabby or a little less, like I always say, and this is the luteal phase that I'm talking about. So right before you get your period, we typically just like, we cannot put up with as much BS. And our like BS level is way down. So my friends and I always send like the funny memes. And it's like, why is everything that my husband is saying to me bothering me? And like, they're like all pissed off. And then it's like, gets their period next day and they're like, oh, that totally makes sense. Like when your husband's chewing makes you upset, you know, you're going to get your period soon. And so there's all these like funny memes, but to keep the knowledge that it's our hormones are different. And a big piece of my business is actually kind of celebrating each season, because we have four different phases of our menstrual cycle. We have four different like kind of chunks of what you guys have in a 24-hour clock. We have like four different chunks in our month. And actually learning those, and then learning the I call them like superpowers that you have in each phase of your cycle, because there's a lot of negative stereotypes around, like, oh, she's so bitchy, she must be on her period. And it's like, no, she just doesn't have as much, like where we might be like, oh, haha, you're so funny. We're like, never mind, you're not funny, and I'm not gonna like gas you up. And like you just have less capacity. And I mean, that's like the negative stereotype, but I like to focus on more of the positive things, but I'm trying to go off of like all of the funny memes and everything that everyone talks about.
Yeah. Then so if you're working with a woman who's a leader, are you then talking to her about how she can align her cycle to best be productive, or what does that might look like? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that we always want to be uber productive. I mean, we just live in that world of like, if you do more, you're going to be more successful. Just keep hustling, like hustle culture, like never take a day off from the gym or you're going to lose all of your muscle mass. Like, I mean, there's so much that we get told. And so a big piece of what I do in working with learning our cycle in terms of business, which is a lot of the client work that I do, is actually looking at the superpowers, the benefits. So when you have more progesterone, less estrogen, like in your luteal phase, you have this like, your body is really preparing for this huge shed, right? Like kind of like squirrels prepare for winter, and they're gonna go, and like you see so many squirrels in the fall because they're just gathering all those nuts. So your luteal phase is actually this really great time to tie up loose ends, and your energy just wants to flow that way as a woman. So like food prepping or responding to the emails that you haven't responded to in a long time, or even like scheduling, you know, like your menstrual phase, you tend to have lower energy because you actually are shedding. So maybe scheduling like the important calls that you need to after you're done that phase of your cycle. And there's so many, like in your follicular phase, which is after your bleed, you have this build of energy. So you have this really great capacity to like focus, and you have all of this beautiful creativity. And it's a really great time to like have those brainstorming sessions of,
Mm.
I don't know, these like collaboration calls or whatever in your job of planning your next month of the podcast or whatever it might be. And so each phase has all of these really cool benefits to it. And my life experience and what I teach my clients is, instead of saying like, oh, I'm in my luteal phase, or I'm like in my menstrual phase, I just have no energy and I just have to like do nothing, but I have to do all the things because I'm not allowed to slow down. Like, instead of just kind of getting in this spiral, it's focused of, this is what you can focus on this month or this week. This is what you can focus on this week. And then we get obviously to the ovulation phase where you have higher energy. And, maybe that's a really great time to plan the most like outgoing pieces of your month. And it's all these little shifts. It's never, I think sometimes it feels overwhelming, but it's all these little shifts. And then seeing again how your body feels. Like, do you feel less overwhelmed throughout the month? Do you feel more in control and less burnout, I guess, is a word that we use a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just giving people more information, more awareness, so they can show up the best way possible because they have the necessary wisdom, information, so they can handle what happens. They're not surprised by certain things. They can plan ahead. They can be proactive. Yeah, that sounds like a very smart thing to do. But Hannah, is there anything else that maybe I failed to ask you that you want to mention, I didn't talk about, that you think is important?
Ooh, good question. I think really the most important thing that I'm kind of taking from this conversation and that I love to talk about is creating those times to slow down and to reflect, even if it's 30 seconds, even if it's 2 minutes. I think when we talk about like mindset work or growth or self-development, sometimes it can feel very overwhelming of like, I have to journal, I have to work out, I have to eat healthy, I have to do all this self-care, I have to learn. Now I have to learn fucking like human design and cycles and all of these other things. Like, slow down and pick one and then explore. Like, maybe it's a Google search, maybe it's like sliding into my DMs and just having like a brief, like if you have a brief question or a brief introduction, maybe it's listening to a couple podcasts. You don't have to do it all, and your self-growth progress is not measured by time and how much time you put in every single day. We're all really busy. And if you take 10 minutes for yourself and that's all you feel that you can give, then you're winning. And don't let anyone tell you that you have to do this whole laundry list of things. If it doesn't feel fun, if it doesn't feel light, don't do it and try something else, because you're going to find the thing that clicks for you in your journey.
Yeah. So what's the best place for people to go, Hannah, if they want more of you? Instagram?
Instagram, yes. So I'm basically everywhere. On Instagram, it's @_Journey to Well. My podcast is Journey to Well. YouTube, if you want to go down the archives, it's also Journey to Well. I'm pretty much everywhere, Journey to Well, but I definitely hang out the most on Instagram. And then, like you, I have a pretty active podcast too. So I think that's a really great place where I have conversations. I'm going to have you on my podcast with just amazing people. So if you want to learn about all of these experts, not just from me, I think the podcast is also a great place.
Yeah. All that's linked right now in the show notes below, so you can check that out. But Hannah, thank you for your time. I appreciated getting to know you, and thanks for the work that you do in the world.
Thank you, Aaron. This was so fun. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.